All right, so let's jump into this Allium DAO proposal. As a fellow Taraxan, I know you're really interested in this and how it could change things up. And trust me, after I went through all this stuff for this deep dive, I think you're going to be just as fascinated as I am.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they lay out the vision here. Taraxa Catalyst really sees Allium DAO as this thing that puts the community in charge. They'll be the ones driving innovation and deciding where the whole project goes.
Yeah, and they're not shying away from big ideas either. It's not just tweaks here and there. They want to create this fully self-sustaining ecosystem. And the way they're talking about it with this Allium Infinite Loop, that really caught my eye. But I think before we go too deep into that, we got to lay some groundwork. So what exactly is Allium DAO?
Okay, so basically it's a decentralized autonomous organization. But the whole point of it is to give every single Taraxan a voice. It's like this community-governed hub. Taraxans can propose projects, try to get funding for them, and really collectively guide the future of Taraxa.
So instead of, relying on the old ways of doing things like traditional funding models or having decisions made at the top, Allium DAO is all about putting the power in the hands of the community.
Exactly. It's all about creating a system where every Taraxan, no matter how much they know about tech or how much money they have, they can actually make a difference and have a real impact on where the project goes.
Okay, I'm starting to get the idea, but why is this such a big deal? What makes Allium DAO so potentially game-changing for Taraxa?
Well, the proposal lays out three main benefits, and I think these are worth highlighting. First, it empowers the community by giving every Taraxan a direct say in how the ecosystem grows and changes. Second, it creates this sustainable funding model. So successful projects generate revenue that's then put back in to fuel even more innovation. And third, it fosters a strong sense of collective ownership. So Taraxans don't just see it as some project out there. They see it as a shared thing they're all building together.
So it's not just about funding projects then. It's about creating this vibrant community that's really invested in seeing Taraxa succeed. That's a pretty compelling vision. But I have to admit, I'm still a little fuzzy on how this Allium Infinite Loop actually works. It sounds almost too good to be true.
No, it's actually pretty straightforward. There are 4 interconnected stages. Let me break it down for you.
Okay, walk me through it. What's the first step in this loop?
It all begins with Taraxans proposing projects. This could be anything, really, from developing new features for the Taraxa protocol itself, to creating educational resources for new users, to designing marketing campaigns to try to get the word out about the project.
So if I had this amazing idea for a new DApp that could use the speed and security of Taraxa's network, I could submit a proposal to the DAO.
Exactly. The whole point is to create a space where anyone can bring their creativity and their skills to the table to really shape the project.
Okay, let's say my DApp proposal is a hit, and the whole community loves it. What happens next?
That brings us to stage 2, funding and resource allocation. So DAO members use their governance tokens to vote on which proposals they think are worth supporting.
So it's like a democracy inside the DAO. The proposals that really click with the community, they get the funding to move forward. But hold on, what are these governance tokens you mentioned? How do Taraxans even get those? And what do they do in making decisions for the DAO?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's important to understand how the governance works in Allium DAO. These tokens basically represent voting rights. Taraxans can get them in different ways, like contributing to the network or participating in community initiatives. The more tokens a Taraxan holds, the more influence they have when it comes to voting.
So it's a system that rewards people who are actively involved and who are really contributing to the Taraxa ecosystem. But it's not just about the number of tokens, right? The community also has to be convinced that a proposal is worthwhile.
Well, absolutely. The proposal itself has to be well-written, clear. It has to outline the project's goals, how it will be done, and how it will benefit the entire Taraxa ecosystem. There's a big emphasis on transparency and engaging with the community throughout the whole process.
Okay, so let's say my DApp proposal gets the funding it needs. What's the next step in this Allium Infinite Loop?
That takes us to stage 3, revenue generation and reinvestment. So the projects that get funding from the DAO, they're supposed to generate revenue, which then goes back into the Allium DAO treasury.
So it's not just about spending money then. It's about building this sustainable ecosystem where successful projects actually help fund future initiatives. But where does this revenue come from?
It could come from different sources depending on the project. For example, a decentralized marketplace might make money through transaction fees, while a validator node operation could earn rewards for helping to secure the network. The important thing is that these projects are designed from the start to be self-sustaining. And to contribute to the growth of the whole DAO,
I say, so my hypothetical DApp, let's say it's a lending platform. It generates revenue through transaction fees. And a portion of those fees goes back to the DAO, which can then use that money to fund other cool projects proposed by the community. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy of innovation.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. The Allium Infinite Loop is all about creating this positive cycle, where the success of one project helps create others, leading to exponential growth for the entire Taraxa ecosystem. And that brings us to the last stage of the loop.
Okay, I'm hooked. What's this fourth and final stage?
The fourth stage is all about ongoing engagement and growth within the community. So every project funded through the DAO, no matter what it's focused on, it's supposed to help expand the Taraxa community.
So it's about bringing in new users, developers, and contributors, people who can offer fresh perspectives and ideas. The more successful projects the DAO funds, the bigger and more vibrant the community becomes, which then leads to even more innovative proposals down the road. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
Exactly. Allium DAO is trying to create this self-perpetuating cycle of growth, powered by the collective intelligence and contributions of the whole Taraxan community. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful idea.
It really is. And it's got me thinking about all the possibilities. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to explore some specific examples of projects that could be funded through Allium DAO. And we'll dive deeper into the potential impact this could have on the entire Taraxa ecosystem. Stay tuned. And we're back. That was a fantastic overview of how the Allium Infinite Loop works. But you know me, I always got to dig a little deeper. Can we get into some concrete examples of what kind of projects could actually get funded through this thing? Like, I think it would really help our listener to be able to actually picture this.
Oh, absolutely. Let's get specific. So imagine there's this group of Taraxans who are really into DeFi, decentralized finance. They could propose building a whole lending and borrowing platform.
Right
on the Taraxa network, taking advantage of those fast and feeless transactions.
Okay, I'm listening. So walk me through how this DeFi project would actually work with Allium DAO. Let's say I'm one of those DeFi enthusiasts, and I'm ready to submit my proposal. What do I do?
Well, first, you got to put together a really detailed proposal, laying out all the specifics of your lending platform, like what technology you'll use, who's on your team, and really important, a clear plan for how the platform will make money. Remember, it's got to replenish the DAO treasury to keep that Allium Infinite Loop spinning.
Right. So maybe a tiny transaction fee on every loan, something that users barely even notice. But it could add up to a lot with enough people using it.
Exactly. And to make it even more community-driven, you could even create a special governance token just for your lending platform, so users could have a say in how it's run. It'd be like a mini DAO within the bigger Allium DAO ecosystem.
I like that. All these layers of governance and how involved the community can be. It really shows how Allium DAO could create this whole network of interconnected projects. But let's not get stuck on DeFi. What other kinds of projects could we see coming out of this?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. Let's think about something creative, like a group of artists who want to create a decentralized marketplace for digital art. They could really use Taraxa's ability to handle microtransactions so well.
Now, that's something I could get behind. They could use Allium DAO to get the funding to build their marketplace, attract artists and collectors, and even connect their marketplace with other dApps on Taraxa.
Exactly. And to make sure this art project feeds back into that Allium Infinite Loop, they could set it up so a small cut of every sale goes right back to the DAO.
I'm seeing a pattern here. Every project, no matter what it's about, is designed to help keep the DAO going and support the whole Taraxa ecosystem. But it's not all about dApps and financial stuff, right? Allium DAO could also support projects that focus on building up the Taraxa community itself. We talked about education earlier. What kind of impact could the DAO have there?
Oh, that's a great point. Imagine a bunch of Taraxans who really want to make blockchain easier for everyone to understand. They can propose creating things like video tutorials, interactive courses, even a whole Taraxa knowledge base, all funded through the DAO.
I love it. It would make it so much easier for new people to get involved and give more people the tools to actively participate in the Taraxa ecosystem. They could even integrate these educational resources right into the Taraxa wallet or other parts of the platform, so it's seamless for people to learn and explore.
And let's not forget about getting the word out there. Allium DAO could fund community-led marketing initiatives too, to spread the word about Taraxa in creative ways.
So we're talking about going beyond traditional advertising and letting Taraxans themselves become ambassadors for the project. It's about harnessing the energy of the community to expand Taraxa's reach. They could organize meetups, hackathons, create awesome content for social media, even collaborate with other blockchain projects.
The whole point is to tap into all those different talents and perspectives in the Taraxan community to build a really solid marketing strategy. And what's really cool is that all of these things, whether it's technology, art, education, marketing, it all contributes to the growth of the entire Taraxa ecosystem.
It's like this amazing synergy where all the efforts of the community feed back into the DAO, creating this powerful engine for innovation. But let's step back for a second and address the elephant in the room. If the community has so much power, how do we make sure the projects getting funded through Allium DAO are actually good for Taraxa in the long run? How do we keep the DAO from going off track?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's where those governance mechanisms we talked about come in. Allium DAO is designed to be completely transparent and democratic. So every Taraxan who holds governance tokens gets a say.
Right. So it's not enough to just have a good idea. You have to convince the community that your project is worth supporting and that it fits with the overall vision for Taraxa.
Exactly. The way proposals are made and discussed is meant to encourage debate and scrutiny.
So Taraxans can ask questions, raise concerns, challenge assumptions before they cast their votes. It's a system that forces everyone to think critically and work together. It's a far cry from how decisions are usually made in traditional organizations. But what about accountability? How do we know the money in the DAO is being used responsibly and that the decisions being made are truly in the best interest of the community?
Transparency is key. Remember that auditable treasury management system. Every single transaction in Allium DAO is recorded on a public ledger. Anyone can track how the funds are being used. So there's no funny business going on.
Okay, that's a good safeguard against things going wrong. But even with all these safeguards, we have to be realistic. There will be challenges along the way. DAOs are still new, and we're all figuring this out as we go.
You're absolutely right. No system is perfect. And Allium DAO will definitely face some hurdles as it evolves.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you see? And how can the DAO address them proactively? I think our listeners will want to know about these potential roadblocks and how the community might approach them.
One challenge that comes to mind is keeping people involved.
For a DAO to really work, it needs a lot of active members, people who are willing to put in the time, the expertise, and the ideas. Apathy could really kill any decentralized organization.
Exactly. If people aren't participating in proposing, voting, and discussing, the DAO could become stagnant or even end up not representing the community.
So it's crucial for Allium DAO to create a culture of participation and make it easy for people to get involved.
Yeah, like creating user-friendly interfaces for submitting proposals and voting, hosting workshops and events, and really seeking out diverse voices in the community.
So making it as inclusive and accessible as possible makes sense. What other challenges do you see?
Another potential issue is managing conflicts of interest. As the DAO grows and more projects are competing for funding, we need clear rules and procedures to make sure decisions are fair and that no one person or group can control the process.
We're talking about keeping things fair and transparent.
Precisely. Yeah. And of course, we can't forget about the whole regulatory landscape. As DAOs become more common, governments are still trying to figure out what to do with them.
Right. So Allium DAO will have to keep up with all the regulations and be proactive.
It's definitely a complex and constantly changing situation.
It is. But it's important to remember that challenges are also opportunities.
Absolutely. By anticipating and addressing these potential problems, Allium DAO can lead the way for other DAOs and contribute to how decentralized governance evolves as a whole.
It's about learning from experience, trying new things, and always looking for ways to improve. It's not about being perfect. It's about creating a system that can adapt and respond to the community's needs.
Well said. And I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. We've talked about a lot of potential projects Allium DAO could fund. We've gotten into the details of how the governance works, and we've discussed some of the challenges ahead.
It's been a fascinating journey so far, and I know our listeners are eager to hear what you have to say about the bigger picture. But before we move on to that last piece of the puzzle, let's give everyone a moment to digest everything we've covered. We'll be back shortly to explore the wider implications of Allium DAO and what it could mean for the future of blockchain and beyond. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to our deep dive into Allium DAO.
Glad to be here.
We've covered a lot of ground, really explored how this ambitious project could change the entire Taraxa ecosystem.
Yeah, and now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture. What does a successful Allium DAO mean, not just for Taraxa, but for the future of blockchain, maybe even beyond that?
That's the question, isn't it? We talked about empowering the Taraxan community, but I think what's really exciting is how this could shift power dynamics on a much larger scale.
I'm totally with you on that. Allium DAO isn't just about funding projects. It's about challenging how we think about power and control. Think about it for centuries. Power has been concentrated in the hands of a few. Governments, corporations, institutions.
The few calling the shots for the many.
Exactly. But with DAOs like Allium, we're seeing something new emerge. A new way of doing things, where power is more evenly distributed, so individuals actually have more say and influence over the systems that affect their lives.
So it's about democratizing decision-making, creating a more level playing field, where everyone has the chance to contribute and shape the future.
It's about going from being governed to governing ourselves together collaboratively.
That's a pretty big shift. It's not just about technology, it's about reimagining how we organize ourselves as a society. But let's not get too abstract here. Can you give our listeners some real-world examples of how this DAO model could be used outside of blockchain? How could this impact our everyday lives?
Sure. Imagine a city where residents use a DAO to decide how their local taxes are spent.
Instead of relying on elected officials, citizens would have direct control over how their community is funded and developed, focusing on projects that really benefit them. That's pretty powerful.
It is. Or what about a scientific research organization that uses a DAO to fund studies?
With token holders voting on which projects get support, ensuring that the research aligns with the community's interests and priorities.
Exactly. And we can't forget about how DAOs could help us tackle global issues like climate change.
Yeah, like imagine a global movement where people contribute to a DAO that funds renewable energy projects, reforestation, sustainable agriculture. A way to pool our resources and work together toward a healthier planet.
Exactly. Those are just a few examples. The possibilities are really endless. What excites me is that Allium DAO, while it's focused on Taraxa, could show everyone how these decentralized models can be used to solve all sorts of problems.
It's like a ripple effect, starting with this community of passionate Taraxans and spreading out to change how we make decisions, allocate resources, and take collective action in all areas of society.
It's a bold vision, and I think Allium DAO could be the spark that ignites this kind of change.
But of course, we have to be realistic. There will be bumps in the road.
Right. We've already talked about some of the potential challenges, like keeping the community engaged, managing conflicts of interest, navigating regulations.
But I think it's important to remember that these challenges are also opportunities.
Absolutely. By facing these challenges head-on, the DAO will only become stronger and more adaptable.
It's all about learning as we go, trying new things, and always looking for ways to improve.
Exactly. It's not about getting it perfect right away. It's about building a system that can evolve and respond to the needs of the community.
And that brings us to the most important point, the role of the Taraxan community. The success of Allium DAO depends on every single Taraxan. Their active participation, their dedication, their willingness to work together.
It's a call to action for anyone who believes in the power of decentralized governance. Anyone who wants to build a more equitable and sustainable future.
By engaging with Allium DAO, sharing their ideas, and holding each other accountable, the Taraxan community can set an example for the rest of the world.
They can prove that decentralized community-driven projects can not only work, but they can create real change.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. What if Allium DAO achieves everything it sets out to do? What if this model of community-driven development really takes off? How will it change the world? What kind of future do you see?
It's a question that pushes us to think big. To imagine a world where power is more evenly distributed, where communities have the tools to shape their own future, and where we can tackle our biggest challenges together. That's the future I believe Allium DAO can help create.
It's a future worth fighting for, and we encourage each and every one of you listening to be a part of it. Keep exploring the world of decentralized governance. Engage with the Taraxa community, and let's build this future together. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into Allium DAO and the future of Taraxa.
It's been a pleasure.